Welcome, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. This is another episode of the Robertson Stash, a podcast about life and the pursuit of glass. I'm here with my co-host, Sean Callahan.
What's up?
And today we have a very special guest, my buddy Jeremy from Harmony.
What's up,
Extracts. How are you, dude?
Doing great, man. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, man. Thanks for being on. So you specialize, your industry, you're in the weed industry, hash industry.
Yep.
Our industries kind of go hand in hand.
Absolutely.
But so tell us what you do over at Harmony.
So Harmony is a concentrate company. So we're taking the flower and turning it into hash. So we've got a bunch of different types of hash we make, but our specialty is definitely our live resin.
Do you guys do like seed to kind of finished products?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Most definitely. Yeah, I mean, that's, when you pop from seed, that's the thing that's really going to kind of help separate you in this space, right?
Okay.
I'm sure you guys have heard of the term pheno hunting. Oh, yeah. Are you familiar with that, Matt?
Like the strain hunters, like
yeah, yep.
Okay,
so that's
you're out
really
there just traveling the world for the right.
Well, not necessarily doing that, but like when you're pheno hunting, you'll pop 10 seeds, and typically speaking, you're going to get 10 different varieties that are going to come out. So maybe one will grow more vigorous, or one will have a completely separate terpene profile. Like we have a strain called orangutan titties.
Okay.
And when we pheno hunted that, I've got one strain we ended up calling it Orange Tactic because it literally tastes exactly like an orange Tic Tac. Just to where the orangutan titties itself, it's a Skittles by Grease Monkey cross, and the Grease Monkey comes out a lot heavier on this other pheno. So we've got two completely different plants from the same seed.
So are you smoking these to like figure that out, or are you just smelling it or just looking at it? I mean, do you sample all this too?
It's the whole process through. So whenever we're pheno hunting, being that we produce concentrates and not flower, 100% of our grow goes into our concentrates. So we have about 300 flowering lights. 100% of it gets frozen and goes to live resin. So yeah, when we're pheno hunting it, obviously we're watching it closely through the entire grow cycle. But then, more important to us is how does it translate into a concentrate?
Yeah. You guys grow a lot of exotic genetics?
Yeah, man, we do. They got some fire stuff, but we just, between that and friends and stuff like that, our library has been built over the past 6 years that we've been in business. And, our focus has been on terpene heavy concentrate producing flower plants.
Yeah. What other breeders do you have in the arsenal?
There's some stuff we got from Johnny OG back in the day, some of the Pink House genetics.
Okay.
There's, it comes from all over the place. Like the Lemon G, I don't know if you guys know the backstory to how that came about or not. But there's a gentleman by the name of Two. He lived out in Ohio, I believe it was.
Yep.
And he went to take his trash out one day. And when he went out there, somebody had taken their grow and completely trashed it all. Like the lights, the tray, the plants, everything.
Wow.
And he ended up taking some cuts off these plants that were in the trash. And one of them was the Lemon G.
Wow.
So stuff like
saved
that.
It could have just been gone forever.
Yeah. And that's been a staple in this space almost since we started the medical market in 2009. So it was just shortly after that strain got brought out to Colorado. So personally, man, like I really like to search for a lot of the older stuff.
Yeah.
Weed wasn't broken 15 years ago. No. And so, everybody's always on this breeding tip trying to come up with the next hype strain based off of a name, I feel like half the time.
Yeah.
And so my focus is to kind of find that old school stuff that everybody's forgot about or never even knew about because we have so many new consumers to the market.
What strains are you guys running right now?
Oh man, I think we got around 80 genetics in the library right now.
What are some of your favorites?
Oh man, Velvet Smooth is ridiculous. It's papaya heavy on the flavor of that one. Vanilla Kush it's insane. Like the linalool that thing produces is out of this world. It's so gas heavy.
That's a terpene, Matt.
What?
Linalool.
Linalool? What's that? It's a new word for me.
Linalool. Yeah.
Linable.
Linalool.
Linalool?
Linalool.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a terpene.
It's a terpene.
Okay.
100%.
Wow.
It's
interesting.
If I were to show it to you, you'd be like, that's one I like.
Yeah.
We should sample some.
I'll find a sample of just straight linalool. So I can bring it up.
That's a mouthful.
And I'll let you smell the linalool, and then I'll bring up a strain that kind of correlates, and you can smell how.
So is this like a cannabis terpene or just a terpene?
There you go.
Linalool is found.
It's in everything?
Remember. It's not in everything, but there are plants that it is derived from outside of cannabis.
Okay, interesting.
A majority of the terpenes that are found in cannabis, if not all of them, are found in other plants
everywhere.
The special thing about cannabis is it's, the flavors that all the terpenes that it'll produce in a single plant, right? And how they all kind of come together to have the effect that you're going to get from the plant material.
That's one of the things I absolutely love about cannabis is that it is the only plant in the world that can produce damn near every single terpene on the planet.
Right.
Is that right?
Yeah.
What's the difference between sativas and indicas?
Here we go.
I've been hearing about these two things. Indica, couch. Sativa, you feel like you're...
Something about sales pitch from the dispensary?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, indica sativa, it's a real thing in the grow, right? My sativa plants are going to be real narrow leaf. The plants are going to stretch taller. So the look of the plant
while they're growing.
Well, it's not just the look. It's going to get taller, but typically speaking, sativas have a longer flowering period. Yeah. So, indicas are usually a 7 to 9 week photo period there. Sativas typically are, 9 to 12 up to 14 weeks. Some of the hazes, a haze, man, those things, they're at least 12 weeks.
Keep going.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen a haze that finishes in
so
less
they
than 12
grow
weeks.
differently. Sativas, indicas, they grow differently in the growing process.
100%.
When you smoke them,
so
is that kind of...
It's too basic of a way to look at it, right? In the grow, it's super important. On the consumer side, I never ever had anyone ask me if my weed was a sativa or an indica before a dispensary popped up. And kind of what I correlate that to is, when these stores started popping up and you've got all these people moving out here from Texas or whatever state they're coming from, right?
You're welcome.
They're not necessarily an expert on what they're selling, right? If you ever had a weed man before all these stores popped up, once you found a good weed man, you go to him like, hey man, I'm looking for something fruit. I'm looking for gas. I'm looking for something that's going to put me down, whatever it is. And that guy's tried all of his shit and be like, oh, this is what you want. Right. And so we've kind of lost touch with the weed man, if you will. And so, the bud tenders, they're not consuming all these products and they can't. If you have 200 strains on your shelf of just flower, plus all the concentrates, plus all that, you can't smoke all that.
And remember what you're smoking and,
even if you did, you're talking hundreds and hundreds of products, but that's just not realistic. So the easiest way for, a bud tender to correlate an effect is sativa or indica. And it's kind of turned into this makeshift way to sell product to get the desired effect. And it's not necessarily true. I think Another big problem that I see, other than everyone asking for a sativa or indica, because that's usually the first question they want. And then the next question I always hear in the stores is, what's your highest testing?
THC, right?
THC.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I look for when I go there.
Right, but
When I used to go there.
you're shopping all wrong, man. 100%.
Yeah.
I say that because
I like the smell. I go for the smell too.
and that's what you should go
Yeah,
for.
the
You know,
smell.
the nose knows, right?
Okay.
If you've ever heard that phrase, the nose knows.
Yeah.
You know, your body, when you go through whatever you're kind of leaning towards, your body knows what it wants. You know what I mean? And, but more importantly is how the terpenes play a role into how the THC is going to affect your body. So a lot of people don't realize it, but it comes down to a term called bioavailability. Have you ever heard that before?
Yep.
Yes. Sure. All the time. Bioavailability.
Well, for those of
I
you
said
who,
that earlier today.
for those of you who don't know what that is,
Please explain to them.
bioavailability is whenever you ingest anything into your body can only absorb so much, right? You have receptors in your body for all these different things you're ingesting, and you can only absorb so much. And something like, you know, fat is going to absorb a lot easier than something like if you're taking a vitamin D supplement, right? So, you know, it comes down to the bioavailability of how much your body can actually take in. And these terpenes can open up your cannabinoid receptors to where you're able to uptake more of the THC and the terpenes into your system to get the desired effect than if it was just the THC by itself. So now you can smoke something, and I'm sure you've smoked something before that tests at, say, 15% THC, and you know it gets you more of the desired effect than something that tested out at 30%, right? And it'll probably last longer as well. Well, that's because of the terpenes. So to just look at as a THC being the only thing that's having an effect in cannabis, in my opinion, it's very, very misleading. And that's kind of how the state and the legislatures rolled it out. We look at it as those two things, sativa and indica and THC potency.
Three
But
things. Yeah.
it doesn't tell the whole story.
I really like how some of the West Coast states do it with their terpene tests and how they always provide that. You know, you go to Vegas and you can see a full panel of terpenes that are in that flower. And that kind of helps you develop, even if you didn't know beforehand, after you start buying like that, you're like, oh, okay, well, I really like these terpene profiles, even though you may not know which one is which. But it's definitely on the right path as far as.
You think people are buying these like wine and saying like which terpenes have certain notes and that's what I prefer and that's like my flavor?
100%.
Okay.
100%.
And now is there descriptions written up like this one has a nutty finish? Oh, there is?
Yeah, you can go online and find different things.
That pre-98 Bubba.
And that kind of goes back to what I was talking about earlier with the fruity flavors. New consumers tend to gravitate towards the fruit flavors, right? And, you know, if I hand somebody who's never really smoked before Banana Kush and I hand them a OG Kush, they're going to hit the OG Kush and they don't really know how to respond to that flavor, right? Like it's something that they've never experienced before because only OG Kush tastes like OG Kush, right? To where if I hand you Banana Kush and it tastes like a banana runts, now in your brain, as soon as you hit it, you're like, oh, like, all right, like this does taste like banana. Like that's crazy. And so I think that that's the reason that, you know, newer consumers kind of gravitate towards the more fruit strains.
It's more relatable.
It's
to their
100%.
palate,
And when they get a clementine, it tastes like a clementine. It makes sense. You know what I mean?
It's always interesting to see some of the strains as flower and then it goes through the tube or the process and all of a sudden it brings it out because strawberry banana smells okay on the flower. You send it through the process and all of a sudden you're holding a gram that smells like money.
Right.
It's so damn good. So one of those strains that we grew years back was it was from Bodie, and I think it was a Triangle Kush cross. I liked it on the plant. We sent it to get extracted, and all of a sudden it came back smelling like applesauce. And we cut the plant down, and the guys over at the lab were like, "Oh my God, please tell me you have more of this coming through because it smells like applesauce. Like, no, actually, we cut it down because it smelled kind of just okay on the plant. And so that was a one thing only, but it was, it's always interesting to see in and out. And I've always gone by the term fire in, fire out.
100%.
And, some strains you have to rely upon the extraction process, and some strains you just know, like Chem de la Chem, going in, it's gonna smell amazing coming out. But some of my favorite strains, I'm a gas man. I'm more than a fruit than anything else, and I love some straw nana, but the gas is where it's at. We used to grow a strain 12 years ago that we just called baby poo. And I realized that
we've lost that terp profile, man. I know exactly what you're talking about.
That's a strain for dads. 'Cause dads can relate to that.
Yeah. I find that parents usually don't like to relate to that smell. Like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. Well, no, I do, because it smells like fresh steaming diaper of baby poo, but on a plant, and it's a lot more appealing that way.
So when you guys were doing that, were you guys doing like a fresh frozen live resin product, or were you guys doing dry cure?
With the baby poo, we weren't processing it. That was back in not extremely legal circumstances, but for the extraction process, this was back in probably 15, 16. We were going to get it made into shatter, and all of a sudden the extraction guys just kind of left it, and they actually had to leave for a weekend. They came back, and all of a sudden there were these crystals forming, and he's like, hey man, this stuff's just not setting up. It's not getting solid, and you got to come check it out. So we went and looked at it, and sure enough, that was kind of like the birthing point of sauce in today's realm. And I know it's continually gotten a lot more advanced, but it was really cool back then, 6 years ago or so, to kind of see when shatter and wax were a thing. Now all of a sudden these crystals and diamonds started forming, and after that it was only diamonds, and we're just in the sauce realm.
For sure. So was it a live resin product then?
I think so. It was fresh frozen. Yeah. Freeze it and then hit the tube. And I mean, this was even on an outdoor crop.
So this is one of my favorite questions I love to ask people that consume, especially someone, that's on this side of things, that's grown it and produced it. We all know the term live resin, right? Mm-hmm. Do you know why it's called live resin?
Because the plant's still alive when you process it.
That's what I thought.
Close.
You kind of like cryogenically freeze it, and it's still alive, and then you process it.
Nope, it's not still alive.
Well, you can't bring it back to life.
No. It's very simple, easy explanation, man. One of my buddies, Giddy Up, coined the term with Kai and Bill. They were the first ones to really start doing the live resin on a larger scale, and they coined the term back in, I think that was probably into 2013. But what it is it's when you're growing a plant, and you know this because you're a grower, the plant has a very specific terpene profile when you cut the plant down, right? And then you go through the dry cure process, and by the time you get done and it goes into a jar or a bag, it has a completely different terpene profile, right?
Absolutely.
So what happens is, in that dry cure process, you lose about 70 to 80% of the terpenes that the plant produces during its life cycle. Like, they literally just evaporate off in like the first week of the dry cure.
Yeah.
And so with live resin, you're locking in that terpene profile of the plant as it was on the day of harvest.
When it was alive.
When it was alive. So it's 100%.
You're freezing it.
It's
terpene,
freezing it.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
So, but it all goes back to the terpenes themselves, because it's all a correlation to that terpene profile of the plant on that day that you cut it down.
Okay.
So
if you waited longer, it could change before you.
Well, the
terpene profile of that plant.
It could start. I mean, if you put it in a jar, like, what do you mean?
If you waited a little bit longer before you cut it and flash froze it, could the terpene profile change?
Potentially.
A little bit. Okay.
Terpenes are extremely volatile. And I know, like, a lot of people have probably heard that term used together, but I don't think a lot of people really understand fully what that means. So kind of an easier way to think about it, man, is anytime you open up a jar of hash or a jar of weed and you get the smell coming off of it, that's the terpenes boiling and evaporating off. And so, if you're above about, 10 degrees and you open a bag of weed, you're going to get some sort of smell. Once you get below that point, it'll literally, like, you go in our walk-in freezer, it's at -20. You can open all the bags, there's no smell coming off of it at all. It's the weirdest thing, right? But that's because they're not boiling and evaporating off into the environment. Right? We've got them locked into the plant material. So, and like we were just talking about, the terpenes play a crucial role in how the plant's going to affect you.
I want to ask you guys too how you ingest these. Like, what's the best way? And I just recently heard I've made a couple of 5 mil little pieces, and I guess the smaller the piece, the more you can taste the terps. Is that correct? Like, someone was telling me this. Like, when you have a big airy piece, you don't really taste it. That's why these 5 mils are so in demand. No,
I think it's all.
I think they're a pain in the ass. You got to clean them after a couple tokes. Like.
Yeah.
They're micro little pieces,
I'm with this man over here. I think it's more of the temperature that you're ingesting it at, and it's not necessarily the piece itself.
So what about a big piece? Does it matter?
Well, this isn't flour, right? And so, you are smoking your concentrate. If you're hitting it out of a big rig, usually you're taking a massive bong rip if you got something like that. And if anybody's ever done that at home, like, you're falling out coughing afterwards, right?
You gotta almost die to get high, right?
Yeah.
Cough to get off.
No, you gotta almost die to get high.
There you go.
Oh man, the cough to get off, dude. It's kind of funny because, like, for the longest time we'd always like hold it in as long as we can. Then you're like coughing afterwards and everything. Most people don't realize, and there's been studies that have been released now, whenever you inhale cannabis smoke, all of the THC and terpenes and everything that you're going to absorb is absorbed in the first 3 seconds of you inhaling it. And when you're holding it in and you get that head rush when you blow it out, it's because you have oxygen deprivation going to your brain. And so it's not the weed that's getting you high. You're literally just choking yourself out.
And it's probably doing damage more to your lungs the longer you hold it in.
It definitely can. Obviously when you're ghosting a hit, right, and you're not blowing it back out, you guys see how dirty a bong gets, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of one thing that I like to talk about, and this is my personal opinion, not factual, but in my opinion, consuming concentrates is a healthier way to consume. And there's a multitude of reasons that I say that, but the most inherently obvious one is if you've ever had a dab rig, you could take 100 dabs off of it and you're going to have to clean the rig from any oil that didn't vaporize, but that's it. You could take a flower tube and 3 bowls later, it's already turning black.
You can't see through it.
Yeah. Right. So, with the concentrates, you're taking out all the carbon-based material that you'd typically be ingesting. And on top of that, whenever you're inhaling smoke, inherently, it's not good for your lungs. So, flower burns around 1100 degrees. When you're dabbing, if you're dabbing properly, you should be taking low temp dabs, right?
LTD.
Oh yeah,
all day to get that flavor.
Don't chaz the banger.
Don't chaz the banger, bro. So yeah, you're typically taking dabs at like, anywhere from 450 to 600 degrees. And you might take like, maybe 2 or 3 dabs compared to smoking an entire joint where you're inhaling, 20 to 30 times for a joint. So, just less ingestion, ingesting it, less plant material that's going into your lungs.
It's just cleaner.
100%.
And less of it. That's more powerful.
Way more. Yep.
Well, what concentrates did you bring today?
So these are kind of special, man. We just released our rosin line finally.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thanks, man. Super stoked. The guys in the lab really did a good job, man. So we got 4 different flavors here for you guys to check out.
Should we sample one? Should I get the bong?
GMO number 2. That is dirty. A little mothball behind it. Original
Kush mints. I got some weed of that out there.
I seen that. I thought that was pretty funny.
Should I grab a bong? Should we take a little 2-minute break and test it out? And then we'll do a little daily piece that Jeremy picked out, and we'll wrap this up. I think we did pretty good, but I'll be right back. We'll be right back. And then I'm going to grab a bong.
Get it.
Wow, those were some good dabs.
Well, let's go ahead and do our
Okay.
daily feature before
Jeremy picked this one out. One of my personal favorites. I haven't really promoted it yet, but it's the Cowboy Devil Within collab where there's like a giraffe that's just kind of like a devil giraffe, but
kind of looks like a dragon.
you should really I guess kind of no wings.
I don't know, I'm a Game of Thrones fan, so
Yeah,
whatever.
I would love those dragons on Game of Thrones. Man. They're great. Or House of Dragons, the new one. Yeah,
It's all right.
it's a giraffe, dude.
It's all right.
You know what? One of my apprentices, he was like, "Yo, check out my dragons, dude. I've been making after I trained them for months and months." And I'm like, dude, those are my giraffes. Dude, those aren't dragons. Like, you should go look up what dragons look like. Then they changed, but I think that's more of a giraffe. I love that guy too, Tommy. But
Shout out
Tommy. Anywho, well, dude, you know what? You are a wealth of knowledge, Jeremy, and like it's been a lot to learn all this stuff. And thank you for sharing with us.
Yeah, I
man.
appreciate you guys having me out and getting
We got to
spread
have
the
you
love a
back,
little
and
bit.
maybe we can like go deeper into some of those things. And like, I don't know, you could be our resident weed guru, knowledgeable scientist guy. Like,
I can
what
do
is
that
your
for
exact title, actually?
my exact title is the executive VP at Harmony.
Sweet.
But I'm in charge of all of our production and manufacturing. So
Dope. Well, I can't wait to see more of it, dude. With this is great. This rosin, like, is that how you present each one too, in like a little ball like that?
for now, we're actually going to start here in the not too distant future. We're going to turn them into hash coins.
Ooh,
and it'll
that
have the,
seems like the future.
stamp.
It'll have the bird on each gram.
Oof.
So I'm pretty stoked for that. That'll be
is
something a little
amazing.
different.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing products. Really looking forward to having you back, man.
Cool.
Excited to
Well,
come back, man. Thank you guys
yeah,
again for real.
I just want to thank the listeners and go ahead and leave your comments on this podcast, and we'll pick a winner later for somebody who leaves a comment on there. You know, maybe you might have good odds right now while this thing is starting out, but
Yeah.
we'll see. Thanks again, Jeremy, for being a part of this, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, signing off. I'm
Peace out.
Sean.
I'm Matt.
And Jeremy.
Thanks for listening to the Robertson Stash.
There you guys.